At exactly 6:12 a.m., as the sun barely touched the cracked windows of his one-room apartment, a knock echoed through the hallway, slow, heavy, and deliberate. The poor single father standing inside had no idea that behind that door was a billionaire CEO whose decision that morning would change not only his life, but the fate of everyone who had ever looked down on him. No one wanted the night job because people whispered that everyone who took it either quit, collapsed, or disappeared, but when your child is hungry, fear becomes a luxury you can't afford. Ethan Cole had learned long ago how to survive on almost nothing. Since the night his wife died from untreated pneumonia, because they couldn't afford proper care, life had become a quiet battle fought in silence. Every morning, he packed his 7-year-old daughter Lily's school bag with more hope than food, kissed her forehead, and promised her that things would get better, even when he didn't know how. Bills piled up like accusations on the kitchen table. Electricity warnings, school notices, rent overdue. The factory job he once relied on had shut down, and every interview ended the same way, with polite smiles and no callbacks. Employers didn't like exhausted single fathers who asked about flexible hours. Then Ethan saw the listing. Overnight maintenance and security, no experience required. High pay, immediate start. Everyone in the neighborhood knew about that job. The abandoned industrial building on the edge of the city, once owned by a massive corporation, had become infamous. People said the systems were unstable, the hours brutal, the isolation unbearable. Some said the previous workers quit after one night. Others said they were fired without explanation. Ethan didn't ask questions. That night, after tucking Lily into bed and leaving a note apologizing that he wouldn't be home till morning, he took the bus to the industrial zone. The building loomed like a giant shadow, silent and cold. Inside, flickering lights revealed long corridors, broken cameras, and machinery that hummed like it was breathing. His task was simple: monitor systems, clean restricted areas, and report any abnormalities. But around 2:40 a.m., something went wrong. A power surge hit the main server room. Alarms screamed. The cooling system failed. Ethan didn't run. He remembered Lily's face. He followed emergency manuals left behind by workers who'd given up. He manually rerouted power, risked severe burns, and held the system stable long enough to prevent a total meltdown. By dawn, the building stood quiet again. Ethan clocked out, exhausted, hands shaking, unaware that every move he made had been watched. The man standing at his door wore a suit worth more than Ethan's yearly income, and behind him were black cars, silent guards, and a truth that would finally answer why that job paid so much. Chapter 2: The Door That Changed Everything. Ethan had just poured water into an old kettle when the knock came. At the door stood Alexander Royce, the billionaire CEO whose company once owned the industrial building. His face was calm, but his eyes carried something heavier than authority: respect. Without ceremony, Alexander spoke. He explained that the building housed legacy servers holding sensitive data tied to thousands of employees' pensions. The system failure that night could have erased everything. Automated protocols had failed. Contractors had quit, but Ethan had stayed. "You didn't know what was at stake," Alexander said. "And you stayed anyway." Ethan said nothing. He was used to blame, not praise. Alexander continued. He had watched the footage. Not just the repairs, but the moment Ethan paused to fix a broken safety rail so the next worker wouldn't get hurt. The moment he wiped a child's drawing, taped inside his locker, keeping it safe from dust. That told him everything. By noon, Ethan was offered a permanent position, head of facility operations, with training, benefits, and a salary that made his hands tremble. Lily's education would be fully covered. Medical insurance, housing assistance. But the most powerful moment came when Alexander knelt in front of Lily and said, "Your father saved more lives last night than he knows." Ethan didn't cry when he lost his job. He didn't cry when his wife died. But he cried then. The world often overlooks quiet sacrifices made in the dark, but character reveals itself when no one is watching. That night job no one wanted didn't just test skill, it tested heart. And because one man chose responsibility over fear, dignity over despair, the morning didn't just bring a paycheck. It brought a future.